Carson
But
Beck
hey,
got away with it again too, and it's a story, man. Like it's got to be talked about at some point, man. I think I saw a stat on ESPN today on the tracker, like only quarterback to in back-to-back games to throw for 3+ interceptions and win both games. And Georgia, you want to see them run the football. You want to see them get more physical up front. They're not great at it. And
no,
I think, listen, we could jump in the film room, and I know you're going to do this on Rivals, I'm sure, with your site, Brent. Like, if you're going to put Carson Beck in the shotgun and that's the offense you're going to run, he's not a running threat. And what it allows me to do is cheat defensively. And then when you put him under center, it doesn't do it as much. And I got to play more balanced. And I just, I think he's struggling. And I'll say this about the offense, and we'll give it to you. Bobo saved him.
yes,
Bobo absolutely saved Georgia today because everything in the second half was manufactured. Everything was quick game. It was reverse. It was
yes.
reverse again. Like it was like everything he did was to try to alleviate the pressure from Beck because he was struggling and he was trying to find his confidence. And you know, Kirby was trying to do a good job of consoling him and getting him through it. And then you could tell it was like, all right, enough's enough. Like I'm tired of seeing this. And he continues to struggle.
It's Kirby talked about it after the game. He's like, hey, it's a big game for the kid. He's from Jacksonville and things like that. And well, at a certain point, you're a fifth-year senior. You just got to play better. Like, you just can't make the decisions you're making. And the first two interceptions were just egregious.
Bad.
But in late in the game, when you need a play, which, by the way, I think one of the things that they've now found, it's like, who can you trust? If it's a 3rd and 8 plus, 3rd and 7 plus, and they want to go somewhere in a one-on-one situation, they're going to Arian Smith.
Or 6.
Like love it made some over the middle catches,
The
but
short stuff.
with the quick game, finding different ways to get Dylan Bell the ball, like you talked about with Bobo, because those are their guys. That's who they got. It's not like no rah-rah, no Colby Young. They don't have other depth. Anthony Evans, who'd been coming on, was out of that game. So you've got to roll with those guys and figure out. But like you said, it's such the yin and yang with the team, in that, hey, they probably should be a physical run game, play action team, but you just can't be, and you
They're not
haven't
good
been
enough
able to
at
be
it.
because they're not good enough. They're not good enough to me. Diversification in the run game, but they added some of that with the versus some other things. But and Florida, and by the way, Florida, if Lagway doesn't go down, and with the hammy, that's a whole nother. Like, that's a whole
Well,
nother.
and here's the thing. The thing with Georgia is they're healthy on the O line now. Ratledge now that Ratledge played a little bit. Thank God they got back healthy after the first drive. But yeah, I mean that's the part that's kind of I would say the most confusing is they're gonna have to manufacture runs. Frazier still looks like the best back. I mean, he looks the most explosive, the most dynamic. Obviously the end zone celebration is not going to sit well with his coach, and it shouldn't. And you got to get. And listen, I love the way Kirby handles that. And if you didn't hear what Kirby said, he was like, he's a young kid, he's got to grow up. You can't make those mistakes, and we don't do that here. And I just love the way
Yeah.
he talks about it, man. He's just like, that's a selfish thing to do, and we don't do that here. So I think you learn from that. But Beck did, in fairness to Beck, like he did put it together. He did. It wasn't a hard degree of difficulty, but he did start to get it together after the third pick. And the third pick wasn't his fault as much. I'd
Mm.
like for him to feel that blitzer.
Pressure.
It was a little delayed
Yeah.
blitz, which was a good design. But I think he's got to get rid of the football and he's got to feel that. The biggest concern, I would say, obviously the seeing it, the receivers have been an issue for several weeks throughout the season. Another thing, Brent, is, man, it's just if he has too much time, when he starts to move a little bit, if the eyes go down, the play's dead. He's not throwing it. I'd love to see him just continue to climb in the pocket or be able to keep his feet hot instead of circle around and start to run around when he feels a little bit of pressure. But we can give some props to the Georgia defense
Yep.
because they always keep them in games. And this week, Dan Jackson not playing, Aguayo not playing the first half, and then you got guys that are dropping, out there as well, and you're still, you're still flying around, you're still making plays, gave up very, very little, kept yourself in the game, got put in bad situations, still delivered. And this defense is going to have to carry them unless the offense can make some big strides. And the defense is capable of it because they got some dudes and starting to rotate other guys in there as well that I think will continue to help them grow and get better.
You know, you think about in a large sort of in the big picture with Georgia, we're very nitpicky right here. Not necessarily nitpicky. These are issues, but they're 7-1. They're now atop the SEC standings because A&M just got beat, and in the driver's seat to play in the SEC championship and all that sort of thing. So it's one of those where. But by the way, they also go to Ole Miss next week, who put an absolute spanking on Arkansas.
And and can I go because I got something?
Go,
dude. Let me just tell you, one of my favorite competitors, and I say competitor in all of football, is Jackson Dart. Like, if you watch that dude's demeanor and you watch him on the sideline talking to his team, like, he is in it. He's pissed off. They get stopped on 4th and goal on their first good possession, and that dude is in the face of his offensive line. He's on the sidelines yelling. Like, that dude is an elite competitor. I want to go to war with people like him. He's going to run the football. He's going to throw it. He's going to make unscripted plays. But man, I just love the fieriness. And how about the numbers today? 25 of 31 for 515 and 6 touchdowns. We've been saying since Trey Harris was out, who are you going to find? Jordan Watkins. Dude, eight catches for 254. Big plays down the field. They got a tight end in right now that they can work the middle of the field.
Yep.
The run game still isn't elite. Jackson can do enough. They've still been banged up at that spot. But, dude, that's going to be a war next week because I do think Ole Miss they had some struggles, but they clobbered South Carolina. Obviously, they lost to Kentucky, but I think they got it back together, righted the ship. Like I said, defensive line is elite. All of those guys are going to get drafted at home next week against Georgia.
Yeah,
Ole Miss is going to give them all they want.
Yeah, and that's when you think watching that game, and you highlighted it with talking about Dart, which, by the way, think about the dichotomy of what we just talked about with Beck and his demeanor versus what you're talking about with Dart. But Lane Kiffin coached pissed off in that game, to use your words. And his team seemed to feed off of that. And you see so much of him where it's kind of just here and he just kind of there a lot of times. He had a fire today on the sideline that I haven't seen. And maybe it's because LSU got the night game next week and he was mad about that. But when he brought that level of energy, it seemed like his team fed off of it. And
you like cantankerous Kiffin? You like that?
I like that. He needs to be that way because, especially when his team needs it. And because that, like you said, next week with their defensive line and the way they get after the quarterback, it's going to be very much a big game.
And the way they stop the run. So, I mean, I think both of those combined together and Georgia's lack of outside really making big plays. I mean, I don't think they scare you that much. But, man, the SEC, it went from the conference that was the creme de la creme and there was 18,000 teams that was going to make the playoffs to slowly you're starting to see that any given week, man. I mean, it's hit or miss.